Hi, Matt with eTrailer. If you're trying to haul those longer items that won't fit in the back of your bed and you want to get that clean finish to the top of your 2022 Toyota Tacoma, then the Yakima Roof Rack is going to be a great option for you. So let's check it out. So with the Tacoma, you do have a decent amount of storage in your bed and you can use it for a lot of items, but if you are trying to haul those really long items, you might be limited. Anything from a kayak to skis or maybe a ladder or some lumber. You're probably not going to be able to fit that in your bed. So the next best place is going to be on top of your roof, where you are going to have plenty of real estate. And what's really nice is if later on, maybe you're doing some overlanding and you need a little bit more space, a little bit more support up there, you can actually get a ladder rack and make like a whole overlanding rig so you can even put more items and accessories up here. Our kit today is going to be made up of 3 parts. Up top, we're going to have our 50-inch Jetstream crossbars. Beneath that, we're going to have our BaseLine towers, and that's going to connect to our fit kit. So let's look at our crossbars. So we're going to have this designed to the shape. This is actually made to be more aerodynamic to help reduce wind noise. It's also going to have this weather strip that's built into here. And this is also going to help reduce any wind noise from getting into that T-channel. It's going to keep any debris from getting in there too. I do like that it is built in so you don't have to cut anything to size. And the reason why you might want a T-channel is if you have any of those T-channel accessories, and let's say you're really trying to maximize the real estate on these crossbars and you don't have enough room to clamp your accessories on right there. Well, with a T-channel, you can actually push it all the way to the top to really maximize these crossbars. And beneath that, we're also going to have an additional T-channel. What this one's doing is grabbing onto our towers. And your towers is what's connecting your fit kit to your crossbar. And if I remove this, we can kind of check out what's going on under here. What's neat about the Yakima towers is, yes, there are a few bolts you're dealing with. There's only 2 of them. And there's a little bit more to it as well, but these are some pretty advanced towers because they can really accommodate to the shape of your roof, which is kind of important for us today because our front crossbar or the front of our truck does taper in a little bit and does have a little bit of curving to it. So these towers are going to make it possible to get us to have a level surface on top of our roof. But I'll put this end cap back on, and you'll probably notice that we have this little circle right here. That's just going to be a plastic core. You can actually get this changed out later on for a metal locking core for more additional security so no one can come by and take your rack. You can actually get this key-to-like to any other Yakima accessories as well. And this tower is going to grab onto this fit kit. This fit kit is grabbing onto the gutter of our door and the top of our roof. And I'm really liking the fit we have right now. You can see how perfectly that contours to the shape of this edge, giving us a really clean finish. Let's get a few measurements real quick just to see how this is going to live on top of your Tacoma. So the first one I'm going to see is going to be the overall height. That's going to be a little bit under 5 inches, which isn't too bad. It is something to consider if you're in any really low clearance areas, especially when you have gear on top of this. So what I recommend doing is just taking the total height of your vehicle, your crossbars, and whatever's on top of those crossbars so you know whether or not you can make it. Then we can get a measurement underneath. And that's going to be about a little bit under 3.5 inches, which is also pretty good. That's going to give you plenty of space for when you do have those more bulky clamp-on accessories. Now there might be some really tight spots if you need to tighten something into place, but the fact that we can get in our bed and adjust that is going to make this a lot easier. And we need to get our crossbar spread, and that is going to be the distance from one crossbar to the other. So what I like to do is either measure from the end of one to the end of the other. And we're going to have 32 inches right now, and that's going to be set in your instructions. So really, this is going to be more of a fixed point, so you won't be able to change this. So it's important that you check that whatever gear you have is going to be able to work with this crossbar spread. Now we are going to have a little bit of overhang too, and this is going to be pretty minimal. This is going to be great if you have any accessories that have any smaller clamps that can't get around here and you want closer to the edge of your vehicle, just so they're a little bit easier to access, but it's not going to stick out too far where you're going to be likely of hitting your head on them. As for how much this is going to be able to hold weight-wise, your limiting factor is probably going to be your roof. Now, what I'd recommend doing is just going into your owner's manual and checking that, and also checking what your fit kit is rated for. That should be in your kit as well. Then going from the lowest rated component, and then not going above that, just so you don't damage anything. Now, in my opinion, I think this is a really great rack for the Tacoma because it does give us that clean finish to the top. It's able to be the contour to our roof as well. Now, if you are planning to really rig this out and make more of an overland setup with this, and you almost want a platform on top of your roof, then I'd recommend also checking out the Yakima Overhaul ladder rack. Because what's really neat about that is you can get it key to like with what we have today, and that ladder rack is going to be able to raise and lower some so you can get everything even and aligned to get a really clean setup. Now, if you're just looking at other roof racks, I'd also recommend checking out the Thule Roof Rack, because that's also going to have a really clean finish to it, and it's going to be really easy to work with. Now, this is pretty easy to work with too, but this is going to have a bit of a cleaner, more custom fit design because we are able to accommodate to the shape of our roof. Now, if you are curious about this installation, just stay tuned and we'll walk you through it. To start off the installation, we're going to lay everything out. Now I'll go over them a little bit more in detail as we go through, but you'll probably also notice I have my front crossbars up there. It's going to be the same process for both of them. Now the only difference is we might have a few different measurements and some different clamps, but I'll go over that later on. We're going to start with getting our crossbar prepped. So what we're going to do is flip this around, and what I like to do is just double check to see if we have an arrow somewhere on here, because we want to make sure that arrow is facing forward. Now once you find that arrow, you can make your adjustments. I need to flip mine around. And from this point, I like to take my end caps off. What we have to do is pull on that tab. It'll slide right off most times. We've had these in the shop for a little bit, so they've taken a little bit of a beating. With that off, I can put on my towers. Now I'm going to put the first one on that's going to be on the further side from me. So I'm going to put it on in this orientation. The way we're going to do that is by sliding it into this channel with that middle block. Again, I'm pushing that all the way to the other side. And then I'm going to repeat that process with the one on my side, only facing the opposite direction. Now we can get our M3 measurement, and that's just going to be the distance from one tower to the other. Now a good trick you can do is to get that measurement from your instructions and then take that number in half and go from this arrow that's in the center, just so everything's even. So that's just going to look like this. And if you need to make some adjustments, you can just easily just pull this in and push it out some. We can focus on the pitch and toe now. So you're going to have two different points you can adjust. There's going to be a bolt right here. This is going to be your toe. And this one here is underneath this cap. I can actually show that if I just pull on this tab over here. And that's going to reveal this bolt that's hiding out. Now we're in luck because the settings of these are going to be on 2 and B. So that's going to be the center line for each one of them. So we don't have to adjust these any. But on the front ones, you are going to have to adjust that a bit from 1 to A. I'll show you how to do that real quick. All you have to do is make sure this is loose and just adjust it to wherever you need to sit. So if it needs to sit in the A position, it needs to sit furthest away from you. Then you tighten that down. But I'm going to put it back here because we need it in the 2 position. Once this is tightened down, then we're going to repeat that on the other side and put our bases down. And the way you put your base on is pretty simple. You're going to have this opening right here, and this is going to attach to this middle bar on your tower. You want to make sure this opening is facing out away from the center of your crossbar. Then you're just going to apply some pressure until it grabs on. I like to just twist mine a little bit to make sure it's not going to fall off. Once you've done that, and you need to adjust for your toe, which we don't have to do on the rear side, but on the front side you will, you're just going to loosen up this bolt. And you can actually just push this base around, and it's going to change where that bar sits. After you made your adjustment, you place it where you need it to sit and tighten it back down. With our crossbar prepped, we want to make sure this is in the right orientation. So if there's going to be a thicker side of this, we want this to be facing forward, and the thinner side behind us. Now, since we have the rear crossbars, they're going to go behind the front ones. And for now, we're just going to roughly place this where it needs to sit. Typically, you want to put down the front crossbar so you can find where the second one goes, or the rear one goes. Now, if you reference your instructions, you'll find the M2 measurement. That's going to be the distance from the top of your windshield to the front of your front crossbar. And then after that, we're going to use the M4 measurement to figure out the distance from the center of our front crossbar to the center of our rear crossbar. We want to make sure we do that on both sides just to make sure this is square. So after when you check it, it feels pretty good. We can also look at how it's fitting up here. So right now, this is actually just a tad bit shorter than I'd like because we don't have a whole lot of overhang, or the way this is grabbing onto this tab on the side, it's not really grabbing on there the way I want. So what I'm going to do is just flip this around again, just loosen up some, push it out a bit, and try again. We can start securing this onto our roof. So to do that, I'm going to grab my clamps for the rear side. That's going to be B49. They're going to look a little bit longer than the front ones too. And what I'm going to do is just open up this door so I can grab onto my gutter. Also, it's not a bad idea just to press this tab in, secure it into place. We're going to open up this access door, and then we're going to put this hook where this opening is underneath this middle block. Just like that. Now what can happen a lot of times is this is going to be too tight to put this clamp on. So what you should do if you run into that is come over here to the swing bolt, loosen that up some, and what that's going to do is raise this up so it's a bit easier to do. The same thing for our drive bolt. If this is too tight, it's going to be really difficult to get this in place. But once you've adjusted for that, I like to start with my swing bolt and tighten that down until we get a fair bit amount of pressure. Not all the way down though. And then I'm going to move over to the drive bolt. And what I'm trying to do here is tighten this enough just so it can make contact with the gutter. Maybe just a slight bit of resistance, nothing crazy. And once it's done, I can repeat this process on the other side and then going back and forth until this is all the way tightened on top of our roof. And when you're getting near to the end, it'll let you know if it's all the way tight. If you hear that click, just make sure you do that on both parts or both bolts. Now that's all the way tightened down. And now I can just close this access door and close my door and make sure this feels secure. And the last step is just going to be putting this end cap back on. It's going to be these two little hooks that grab onto these two spots. So the trick is really just putting it on at an angle, then applying some pressure. It'll clip into place. And then you can load it up with whatever gear and accessories you have and take it out for a ride. But that's just a look at some of the features and the installation of the Yakima Roof Rack on top of our 2022 Toyota Tacoma. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.